Hello. So last time I think I talked all about HRT and how I'd made my decision that I wanted to keep my HRT. And I'd had my first appointment with my surgeon. I'd had the results from my biopsies, and my plan was then agreed with me. And I talked about the NICE guidelines. And I'll probably go backwards and forwards sometimes, because there are bits where the timeline of events sometimes gets a little bit muddled for me. But I think it was that appointment where I then went and met sort of one-to-one, although I had my husband with me, but you know what I mean, with the breast care nurse who was assigned to me, a lovely lady, Jo. And this was immediately after I'd met with my surgeon, and she talked to me through how she would support me. I mean, this is great what the NHS do. It is amazing. You do feel very looked after. And she talked to me about how I'd get my prescriptions free for the next 5 years, and I got my little card, and sort of what to expect from surgery, and gave me, you get a lot of booklets. I mean, it's great. It is great, and it's informative. But there were times when there was just so many booklets, I got so overwhelmed. And anyway, I've already talked about sort of mindset. So just to recap some of the things that I was doing at that point, I'd already decided that I couldn't hand my body over to the NHS, and I needed to do what I could to help myself to take some responsibility, or well, to take all accountability and responsibility for my body, for myself. And I've got some new glasses. I'm still getting used to them, and they're blue block, and but also just getting used to the nose pads. I think I need to have them tightened. They keep sliding down my nose. And does anybody else have this problem? Sorry, sidebar. When your eyelashes are quite long, and no matter how often you clean your glasses, they just keep tickling and leaving. So I must clean my glasses dozens of times throughout the day. I'm getting through those like alcohol wipes. Anyway, boring. But I've talked about, so the things I was already doing was I was meditating every morning. If I couldn't do it in the morning for whatever reason, I definitely did it every day. I also had sort of health subliminals that I would play. Check out Francesca Amber, Law of Attraction website. She sells them. They're a really, really good price. So some are like just over an hour and 10. And some are, you can play them throughout the night as sort of like white noise while you're sleeping. And she does them for other things as well. She does a health one. I got that. I was meditating, and I bought the book, The Rainbow Diet, and I'd already decided I was changing my diet to, as much as possible, as much as I could afford, would be to eat local organic produce. So that's things like, I mean, British lamb is pretty much grass-fed, organic anyway, but beef and chicken definitely is well worth spending the money. I've learned this. And there's certain things now, if I just go to my local supermarket, like pop into Sainsbury's and buy something, the difference, I mean, a sweet potato, an organic sweet potato, compared to buy in my local health food shop, compared to one I buy from Sainsbury's, oh my God, the difference. Anyway, I'm rambling. So I'd made some changes in my diet. I was meditating, and the food was a massive, long journey of education. But I just started to learn about ultra-processed foods. But again, I had a long way to go, and just started to read labels. And I picked this up from some of the podcasts that I was listening to. There was some particular ones. Again, I'm recapping. Kelly Noonan-Gore's The Heal podcast. Anything health-wise from Diary of a CEO. Chris Beat Cancer. I think I listened to The Glucose Goddess being interviewed. But there was also a lot of mindset podcasts that I came across as well, which are still with me now. I listen to a lot of, she doesn't have her own podcast, but she's been interviewed quite a lot. Marissa Peer, but from a mindset perspective, listen to an awful lot. And I also, and I think I got this from the Heal podcast, and I know I definitely did it at the time because it gave me a lot of comfort. I started listening to an awful lot of Wayne Dyer. There is just, I know he's the late Wayne Dyer, I should say. There's something about his voice that for me was like being wrapped in velvet. It's a deep voice, and it just made me feel, as much as it's not just about what he was saying, because that really resonated with me, you know, that is my vibe, his message, but it was the delivery, the voice. It just made me feel safe. Another thing I did, I thought, I'm going to need some sort of holistic therapy to help me. I've always liked anything tactile, massages, anything like that. And I found, just by Googling and researching what was nearby, and I found a lovely lady called Sarah Devereaux and her signature treatment. And it's sort of a mix of massage, Reiki, and her healing. And it's the most, I think I had 2 or 3 of them before treatment, or was it, no, 2 before treatment, before surgery, and I think 1 a bit later once I was given the okay to be massaged. But it was, again, and this goes back to the TMS mindset, it wasn't about fix me, it was what makes me feel calm and safe. So the Wayne Dyer, the body treatment with Sarah Devereaux. But I'd slightly gone off on a tangent there. But I wanted to decide what else could I do. So immediately, so that we're at the point, so how long am I? 2 weeks, possibly 2-3 weeks, that I had decided very quickly I was going to be very open about this and tell everybody. I'd already told people at work, because I am just very, very open. But that day when I met with my surgeon, and I remember coming home and calling my mum, and this comes from a place of love, but she was very worried about me being open and about it. And one of the first comments was, please don't talk about this on social media. It's private family business. I don't want people to say horrible things to you because you used to smoke. And that was not my experience. I mean, yes, I did smoke, and not then, but I had done in the past, and I'll cover that. I was born in the 70s. I mean, bloody everybody smoked in the 70s. Smoked in the restaurants, they smoked in pubs, they smoked in the cinema, they smoked on aeroplanes. Can you believe that? I was 18, so it would have been 1990. I went on holiday and people were smoking on an aeroplane. I mean, that's just bloody bonkers. But she was concerned that I was already going through something very difficult. But I decided that I would tell people, and I just thought the easiest way to do it is I just put it on social media. Best thing I ever did. The amount of support, love, care was, I could cry thinking about it. It was just amazing. And I'm so glad I did it, because there were people who then said, I'll privately message you. And they privately messaged me to say that they'd had something similar, and and they'd be very happy to help me, you know, talk about things, or help me understand some of the procedures, or talk about anything I was worried about. So that was enormously helpful. But it was like getting a metaphorical hug. And you know, I didn't get 1 negative comment. Nobody said to me, oh, it's your own fault because you used to smoke. Now, if somebody thought that, fine. But I had an outpouring of love and support. It was like a metaphorical hug. And I'm so glad I did that. And there were 2 ladies who, particularly who'd been through breast cancer. One of them pretty much a mirror image of what I was going through, the same sort of results 2 years prior. So she was incredibly helpful, and they explained the sorts of things I was worried about was about having lymph removed, about damage to my body for the rest of my life, about restricted movement, about what might happen to me, lymphedema, how long it would take me to heal, how big my scars would be, would I lose sensations in my breasts, all sorts of things. Interestingly, going under anaesthetic wasn't anything I was worried about, and I'm pretty chill in hospitals, and there was just so many questions I had, and just knowing that there was somebody there. And I guess this is part of the reason I'm doing all of these videos, apart from probably making a complete bonehead of myself, is, I think I said this in my first video, when I was going through this, I wanted somebody just like me, somebody who I could just relate to, and I couldn't find them. And there was nobody in my peer group, friendship group, family who was going through it, who'd had it. I felt so isolated, so alone, so lonely, and I couldn't find anybody. And that was probably one of the most difficult things for me, just feeling singled out, ostracised. And I got so angry about it because I felt nobody understood, and there was nobody for me to talk. I'd get upset, and we'll talk about crying shortly. And that's why I'm doing these videos, because if I just help one person, then I think I've done a good thing. That's it, really. That's the purpose of this. And this is cathartic for me as well. It's like a cleansing. It's helping me to come to terms with some of it, because there is some residual hurt and anger and shame, and this is helping me to sort of put things in order in my own mind. I can't really articulate, but it's doing a good thing for me too. So yeah, if I can help somebody. So yeah, that I talked about it. I've sort of gone open, and I'll cover in another video sort of how people reacted to me, because people do surprise you, good and bad. Believe me, there are people that you think are going to be there for you, and they really aren't. And then there are people who absolutely step up and they blow you away with their love and kindness. So that's another thing. But then we need to talk about crying, because I've always been a crier. But I wasn't brought up that, you know, in the 70s, schooling, family, it was all stiff upper lip, crying is a weakness. I'm telling you, I think there's a guy, I think his name's Jefferson Fisher, and he's a trial attorney. He does these wonderful podcasts about all sorts of things, but communication skills. And he did an episode, probably 2 years ago now, all about crying and how it's good and never feel any shame for it. And I was like, oh my God, I wish someone had done this 50 years ago. Because I'm a crier, and I think our tears have hormones in them, or something, which is our body's natural way of sort of soothing us. And honestly, I'd go for a walk after work and I'd sob for half of it. I walked down the road to the gym one day, tears pouring down my face. People were looking at me. I did not give a shit. I didn't care. I would break down in the middle of a conversation and cry. I remember talking to one of my friends. It was the first time I'd seen them after the diagnosis. My husband had told them, and as soon as she greeted me with a hug, tears pouring down my face in the middle of the pub. I cried in the gym when I told my personal trainer, as she is now, she wasn't then, Delphine. I post a lot about her on sort of Instagram and how she helps me, and I work with her for my sort of strength training. I told her, and she was so supportive. She's been one of the people who's been incredibly supportive, and she ran my first half marathon with me earlier this year. And she was so supportive, and it was actually after my surgery that I met with her and asked her if she would train me and help me to recover, and she's been an absolute blessing, but I'll cover that in another episode. But I cried on her. So I cried in the gym, cried in Sainsbury's, cried walking, cried against a tree. I have a little tree who's my friend. I'll introduce you in another video. I've cried, I think, in the middle of a work meeting, on a conference call, as a Teams call. Probably not my finest. I've cried driving down the motorway. I'm a crier, and I will never apologise for it. Some people can't deal with it, some people can't handle it. It was my outlet. There was a lot of other ways I wanted to let off steam. I'd get very angry. I found that quite difficult to manage, but I'll cover that another time. But basically, this is how I dealt with it. I started my healthy eating journey. I started my listening to a lot of informative educational podcast journey. I was listening to people who made me feel very safe, but also very interested in their topics, like Wayne Dyer, Marissa Peer, Kelly Noonan-Gores and her guests on her podcast. I found the Heal documentary that Kelly Noonan-Gores did very informative. I think I found Peter Crone through that as well. So I started finding interviews that he'd done. Again, the mind architect, amazing. I then found a lot of Chris beat cancer. I learned a lot from his, and I'll cover books another time, but obviously I got the Rainbow Diet, and I then started sort of changing who I was following on Instagram to find, again, inspiring, uplifting, health conscious, holistic therapy type people. I'd been very open about it. I'd told people, and you know, one of my friends actually said to me, or an acquaintance, he said, I'm so glad you told people, he said, because it just removes that pressure of who she told, who hasn't she told, what can I say, what can't I say. He said it just makes everything so much easier that you're very open about it. Therefore, people can ask you how you're feeling, they can ask you what they can do to help you. And I just thought it's easier for me. And I know not everybody's going to feel like that. Some people are going to want to be very private and keep it very private. It's whatever, do what feels good for you. But this is what felt good for me. And believe me, when you do tell people, you will be blown away by how helpful and supportive and kind and loving it is, like a metaphorical hug. So I've talked enough. This is like a bloody rambling episode, and I wouldn't blame you if I hadn't just like nodded off. But this is how it was, you know. This was my reality at that time, and so I was a crier. I still worked. I hadn't actually taken any time off apart from my appointments. That is one thing, if I could go back in time and do differently, I would have taken a week, and I'd have gone so very quiet with my husband just to absorb what was happening to me. I didn't do that because I'm self-employed, so if I don't work I don't get paid. I should have done that. That would have really helped me, but I didn't. I just kept going. So yeah, that's where we're up to. I've told everybody, and sort of started my taking my power back journey. I'd started making changes to my food, changes to my mindset, and it was just the beginning of my transformation, really. So yeah, that's it for now.